The morning sun crept into the courtyard, but its light felt pale, almost cold. I moved slowly through the house, sweeping the floor, my mind still echoing with the words I had overheard the night before. She doesn't belong here. I tried to shake it off, telling myself that perhaps he had only spoken out of frustration. Perhaps my son did not truly mean it, but as I reached the front door, I heard footsteps and unfamiliar voices. I looked out and saw a man in a pressed shirt and polished shoes, standing with my son near the neem tree. His hands moved quickly as he flipped through a folder of papers. "This property is prime," the man said confidently. "Old houses like this can fetch a good price if we tear it down and build new flats. You could earn more than enough to buy a modern apartment for your mother and still keep plenty for yourself." My chest tightened. My son nodded, his expression serious. "Yes, that's what I want." "She won't agree easily, but leave it to me. I'll convince her." I stepped outside, my broom still in hand. The men looked up, startled. My son forced a smile, but I could see the guilt flicker in his eyes. "Ma," he said too quickly. "This is just a friend." He was passing by, but the papers in the man's hand betrayed the truth. Blueprints, maps, numbers scribbled across pages. I raised my chin. "You want to sell this house without asking me?" My son's face hardened. "Ma, don't be dramatic. This place is falling apart. You're alone here. I'm only thinking of your comfort. A flat will be easier for you." I looked around the courtyard, the neem tree, the faded walls, the prayer corner. Comfort. No flat in the world could comfort me more than this soil. "This house is not for sale," I whispered, my voice shaking. "Not while I live." The man cleared his throat and stepped back, sensing the storm. My son sighed heavily, as though I were a child throwing a tantrum. After the man left, silence stretched between us. My son's voice finally broke it, sharp with irritation. "Why are you so attached to this place, Ma? You act as if these walls love you back. They're just bricks. One day they'll collapse on you, and then what?" I steadied myself against the doorframe. "Bricks may fall, Beta, but memories stand long after. These walls held you when you were a child. They sheltered you when you were sick. They listened when you cried. How can you call them nothing?" He shook his head, dismissing me, and walked away. If you believe no child should try to sell the home their mother built with her own hands, please share this story. Let us give forgotten mothers a voice. I stood there for a long time, the broom heavy in my hand. The courtyard seemed to blur before my eyes. The neem tree rustled gently, as if trying to comfort me, but the ache inside me was too deep. I thought my children would protect the house I built with sweat and prayers. Instead, they plot to erase it while I still breathe. That evening, the house was quiet, but my heart was loud with grief. I thought perhaps sleep would ease the ache, but rest refused to come. So I sat by the window, letting the cool night air wash over me. Through the stillness, I heard voices in the courtyard. My son had returned with two of his friends. Their shoes clattered on the stone path, their laughter rising into the air. I leaned closer to the window, listening. One of them asked, "Why haven't you sold this place yet? The land alone must be worth a fortune." My son sighed, irritation sharp in his tone. "If it were up to me, it would be gone already. But Ma is stubborn. She clings to this old, crumbling house as if it were a palace. She doesn't understand that it's just walls. She's old-fashioned, sentimental." The words cut deeper than any knife. Old-fashioned, stubborn, sentimental. Did he not know what these walls had cost me? Did he not see that each crack was carved with my hunger, each brick sealed with my sweat? I pressed my hand against the window frame to steady myself. My fingers trembled, not from age, but from the weight of betrayal. His friend laughed lightly. "Mothers are like that. They don't understand the world now. You should be firm. Sell it before she changes her mind again." My son's reply was quiet, but I heard it clearly. "Sometimes I think she's just holding on to this house to feel important, but she's alone now. She doesn't belong here. She doesn't belong in this neighborhood. It's time she accepts that." I felt my knees weaken. Alone, not belonging. This was the very soil where his father and I had dreamed of his future. This was the courtyard where his feet first touched the earth, where his laughter once filled the air, and now, he said I no longer belonged. I wanted to run outside, to shout, "This house is not walls, it is me. When you erase it, you erase me." But my voice stayed trapped in my chest. Instead, I sank onto the floor, pressing my forehead to my knees, tears spilling silently. I remembered the nights when I stayed awake through storms, guarding the house like a soldier, afraid the wind would rip the roof away. I remembered patching the walls myself, carrying buckets of mud and plaster with aching arms. I remembered telling my children, One day this house will protect you, even when I am gone. And now, my own son spoke of it as if it were a burden, as if it were nothing. If you believe no mother should ever be called stubborn for protecting the home she built with her blood and love, comment, respect below. Let's honor her sacrifices together. Their voices drifted away, fading into the night, but their words stayed lodged inside me like thorns. I thought love would make my children see value where others saw dust. Instead, love blinded them, and now they only saw money where I saw memories. After my son left, the house felt heavier, as though its very walls had heard his words and sagged under their weight. I walked slowly from room to room, touching the corners, my fingers brushing over the faded paint, the chipped plaster. Each mark carried a story. I remembered the day we first laid the foundation. My husband stood in the sun, sweat soaking his shirt, as he helped the workers mix the cement. I carried water in clay pots, my hands raw from the weight, my feet cracked from walking back and forth. We had nothing but determination. At night, when the workers left, I sat by the lantern, stitching clothes for neighbors to earn extra money. Every coin I saved went into these walls. One week it was enough for bricks. Another week, for cement. Slowly, brick by brick, this house rose not from wealth, but from sacrifice. I thought of the nights when my husband fell ill. Medicines were too costly, so I cut back on food. 1 chapati for him, half for me. Still, the roof had to be finished. So I sold my silk sari, the one I had saved from my wedding day. People mocked me for wearing only faded cotton, but I told myself, better cotton on my body than rain on my children's heads. When the roof was finally laid, I cried into my hands. Not because it was strong, but because it meant my children would sleep safe from storms. Years later, the house echoed with laughter. My children's footsteps ran across the courtyard, their giggles bouncing off the walls. I drew lines on the plaster to mark their height each year. They would argue about who was taller, their voices ringing with pride. Those marks are still there, faint but unbroken. And now, my son looks at them and sees only cracks. I walked into the small prayer room. The floor was worn smooth from the years I knelt there. Each morning, before cooking, I prayed in that corner, asking for strength to raise my children. My voice filled the silence of this house with hope. I touched the wall and whispered, "These bricks carry my voice. How can I leave them? How can I sell them?" Once, during a flood, the water rose knee. Neighbors abandoned their homes, but I stayed. I carried my children on my back, moving from room to room, refusing to let the house drown. When the water receded, the walls bore stains. Others saw dirt. I saw proof that I had fought to keep my children safe. And now, my son wants to wash it all away with money. If you believe no mother's sacrifices should ever be reduced to money, like this video and share it with the world. Let's remind people that walls built on love can never be priced. I leaned against the neem tree in the courtyard. The same tree that once shaded my children's games. Its roots ran deep into the soil, just as my roots ran deep into this home. How could he say I did not belong here? If I do not belong here, then where does a mother belong? I thought this house would always be my comfort. Instead, it became a burden in my son's eyes, something to be sold and forgotten. The morning was quiet, but my heart was restless. I had risen before dawn, sweeping the courtyard where I had once watched my children play. The old neem tree still stretched its branches toward the sky, and the cracked walls of the house carried whispers of laughter that once filled them to me. This house was not just bricks and wood, it was my whole life. I had laid its foundation with my husband. I had painted its walls with my own hands. I had raised my children within these rooms, nursing them through fevers, watching them take their first steps across this very floor. So when my son arrived that day, briefcase in hand and a calculating look in his eyes, I thought he had come to visit his mother, but he looked around the courtyard with disdain and said, "Ma, it's time. This house is too old, too shabby. Sell it and move somewhere smaller. You don't belong here anymore." For a moment, I thought I had misheard him. My throat tightened, my lips trembled. "What did you say, Beta?" He repeated himself, sharper this time. "This house is wasted on you. You're alone here. It has value. Sell it. Move to a small flat. Why keep clinging to something that doesn't suit you anymore?" My knees felt weak. This was not just a house. This was the soil of my memories, the keeper of my sacrifices, the last piece of my husband. I still held, and now my own son was asking me to give it away like it was nothing. I looked at him with searching eyes, hoping for a smile, a softness, a sign that he was joking. But he was serious. His gaze roamed the walls as though they were only numbers, only money. He did not see the cradle that once hung in the corner, The cracks in the wall where I had marked his height with pencil each year. The door where I had stood waiting when he came home late from school. "Sell it, Ma," he said again, impatient. "Don't be stubborn. You don't fit here anymore. It's not your world now." My heart broke quietly, but it broke. I whispered, "This house raised you. This house gave you dreams. And now you say I do not belong in it." But he was already checking his watch, ready to leave. If this moment pierced your heart the way it pierced mine, subscribe to this channel so no mother's story will ever be silenced. I stood in the courtyard long after he left, the neem tree above me, the wind brushing my face. I thought I would feel peace under this roof until my last breath. Instead, my own son told me I was unworthy of it. I thought a house built on love would always be a home. Instead, it became a property to be sold, and I became an old woman told to move away. That night, I did not sleep. I sat in the courtyard beneath the neem tree, listening to the rustle of its leaves. The air was damp, the soil cool beneath my feet. The house loomed around me, dark and quiet, yet alive with the whispers of my past. I thought of my son's words, of my daughter-in-law's plans, of the papers they would soon sign. I thought of being told I no longer belonged, of being asked to leave the walls I had built with my own hands. And yet, as the hours passed, a strange calm settled over me. They could sell these bricks, they could tear down these walls, they could raise towers of glass and steel where my neem tree once stood, but they could not erase me. Because this house is more than mortar, it is my blood. Because these walls are more than property, they are my prayers. Because this soil is more than land, it is my love. At dawn, I took out my small notebook and wrote my final words. My children may sell my house. They may erase the walls that sheltered them, the floors that carried them, the roof that covered their dreams. But they cannot sell my sacrifices. They cannot erase my prayers. They cannot tear down the love that raised them. I will not beg for a place. I will not plead for a seat. I will stand with dignity, even if I must stand alone. Because houses may crumble, but a mother's worth does not. I closed the notebook and placed it inside the old wooden trunk, next to the folded linens. I locked it gently, as though sealing not just paper, but a piece of myself inside. Then I looked around the courtyard one last time. The neem tree, the faded walls, the marks on the plaster where little hands once reached high. My eyes filled with tears, but my heart stood steady. They may push me out. They may call me stubborn. They may see only money where I see memories. But I will walk away with my head high. Because even if I leave these walls, the love I poured into them will follow me wherever I go. If you believe every mother deserves dignity until her last breath, press like, share this video, and comment respect. Let us give voice to mothers who refuse to be erased. The sun rose slowly, painting the sky with pale gold. I stood beneath its light and whispered, "You can take my house, but you cannot take me." And with that, I turned toward the day, my dignity intact, my heart unbroken. The rains had softened that week, leaving the air damp and heavy. I was in my room, folding away old linens into the wooden trunk when I heard hushed voices drifting. Through the half-open door, my son and his wife were in the next room. Their tones were low, but the walls carried their words to me. "She'll never agree if we ask again," my daughter-in-law whispered. "We should go ahead without her permission. Sign the papers and tell her later. By then it will be done." My son hesitated. "But it's her house. What if she refuses to leave?" Her reply was sharp. "She has nowhere else to go. Once the deal is signed, what can she do? She's old, she'll have to follow." My heart stopped. I pressed my palm against my chest, as though to keep it from breaking. My son, the boy I once carried in these very arms, was plotting to take away the only shelter I had left. I stepped closer to the door, hardly breathing. "We'll get a good price," my daughter-in-law continued. "We'll buy a flat closer to the city, near better schools. Think of the children. This old place is holding us back." And her stubbornness let her sulk. She adjust. I closed my eyes. Adjust. That word had followed me all my life. I adjusted when I gave up my jewelry for their schooling. I adjusted when I starved so they could eat. And now, even in old age, I was expected to adjust by losing my home. My son's voice was quieter, almost guilty. "But Ma, she loves this house. She loves the past," his wife snapped. "We need the future. Stop clinging to her memories. They're not money." Their footsteps moved further away, and the voices faded. But their words stayed, pounding in my ears like drums of betrayal. I sank onto my bed, the linens still clutched in my arms. How many times had I folded blankets for my children on stormy nights, tucking them in with prayers? And now, The same hands that once searched for warmth were left trembling in cold betrayal. I whispered to myself, my own son wants to throw me out of the house I built, and I am expected to accept it quietly. If you believe no mother should ever be forced to leave the home she built with her own hands, please like and share this video. Let's remind the world of a mother's worth. The walls seemed to listen as I cried into the silence. I touched them, whispering, you are all I have left. If they sell you, where will I go? Where will my memories live? The plaster felt cool beneath my fingertips, but I imagined it answering me. We are yours. As long as you breathe, we are yours. I thought my children would guard my last shelter. Instead, they plan to erase it while I am still alive. The next morning, I was folding clothes in the courtyard when I heard my daughter-in-law's voice from the veranda. She did not see me standing close by, her eyes fixed on her phone as she spoke to a friend. Yes, we're still in that old place, she said with a sigh. It's embarrassing sometimes. The walls are chipped, the roof leaks. When people visit, I feel ashamed. Everyone else has modern apartments. But we're stuck here because Ma refuses to move. Her words struck harder than the monsoon winds. Embarrassing, she had called my home, my life's work, an embarrassment. I clutched the fabric tighter in my hands, my knuckles white. For years, I had scrubbed these floors until they shone, polished these brass handles until they gleamed, kept the courtyard blooming with flowers. And now, the home I had built with sweat and sacrifice was nothing more than shame in her eyes. Later that day, she approached me directly. Her tone was sweet, but her words were sharp. Ma, you should think about the children's future. If we sell this place, we can move into a modern flat with proper lifts and parking. It will look respectable. Right now, people gossip. They say we are living in a ruin. I wanted to shout, to tell her that people's gossip could not erase the love carved into these walls. But my throat ached, and only silence came out. She mistook my silence for agreement. You see, Ma, even you know this place doesn't suit us anymore. I turned away before my tears betrayed me. That night, as I sat alone on my bed, I thought of how many times I had denied myself new clothes so she could wear fine saris. How many times I had skipped medicines so they could save money for comforts. And now she called me beyond my home unworthy. If you believe no daughter-in-law should ever call her mother-in-law's sacrifices an embarrassment, comment respect below. Let us stand with mothers who gave everything. I touched the walls beside me, whispering, do you hear them? They want to erase you. They want to erase me. But you are my witness. You know what I gave. The plaster was cool against my palm, but in it I felt warmth like the memory of my husband, like the echo of my children's laughter. I thought being mother and mother-in-law would earn me respect. Instead, I became a burden, and my house became their shame. That night, as the silence of the house pressed against me, I lit a small lamp in the prayer corner. The flame flickered, casting shadows across the cracked walls. My son's words still burned in my ears, but my heart wandered back to gentler times. To the days when these same walls were filled with joy. I remembered the very first festival we celebrated here. The house was new then, bare walls, unpainted floors, no furniture except a few mats. Yet to me, it felt like a palace. I had woken before dawn, drawing rangoli in the courtyard with colored powders, my hands trembling with excitement. The children had run barefoot, their laughter echoing under the neem tree. Even the neighbors had come, curious to see how we would celebrate in our new home. I had cooked with all my heart, even though the pots were small and the ingredients scarce. A simple meal, sweet rice, fried bread, and lentils, but the children had clapped as though I had served them a feast. My son, then still a boy, had danced in the courtyard, his voice shouting proudly, "This is our house. This is my mother's house." Those words had filled me with pride, deeper than gold. And now, that same son said, I did not belong here. The memory of his childhood joy clashed painfully with the bitterness of his present demands. How quickly love had turned to calculations. How quickly pride had turned to shame. I closed my eyes and heard again the echoes of that. The sound of bangles clinking as I served food. The scent of marigolds strung along the doorway. The children's voices singing in chorus. This house had not been just bricks then. It had been alive with love, laughter, and hope. I whispered into the empty room. How can I sell you, my house? You are not walls, you are memories stitched into every corner. You are festivals, prayers, and the echoes of my children's laughter. If I sell you, I will be selling my very soul. If you believe no mother should ever be forced to give up the home that carries her children's first laughter, please subscribe. Let us keep these stories alive together. The lamp flickered again, And for a moment I thought I heard my husband's voice in the rustling of the neem leaves outside. Stay strong. This house is yours. Don't let them erase you. I pressed my palms together and whispered, I will not. Not while I live. I thought memories would be enough to keep a house safe. Instead, memories became the very reason my son wanted to erase it because he could no longer see their worth.